one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We will start with approval of the agenda. City Clerk, are there any changes or proposed changes to the agenda?
I have not received any changes or proposed changes to the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dolan. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Cummings.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Certainly. Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh. Still absent. Commissioner Cummings.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller is absent. Commissioner Apuda.
Yes.
Commissioner Vang has arrived at 5:35. Your vote on the approval of the minutes?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Dolan
Yes.
and Chair McCoy.
Yes.
That item passes.
Thank you. We will now, I got lost here. We will now move on to subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission?
Chair McCoy, I think we skipped approving the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I'm jumping ahead. Are there any changes to the minutes from June 6, 2022?
I have received no changes to the agenda.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes, Commissioner Parks.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Is there a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Dolan.
I couldn't hear the second, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair. Yeah.
And just for clarification, that last vote was for approval of the agenda. So this is for approval of the minutes, motion by Commissioner Parks, seconded by Vice Chair Dolan.
Thank you. Can we please conduct a roll call vote?
Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Barraza.
Madam Chair, I think I'm having technical problems. So for now, I just say no. I had a change in the minutes. I'm having technical difficulties.
Commissioner Barraza, I apologize for interrupting. This is Assistant City Clerk Brianna Parra. You are logged in twice. I think that is why you're having issues. I show up that you are logged in twice.
Will that be an abstention or a no vote on the minutes?
Logged off.
It looks like he's back on if you want to try again.
Thank you, Christy. Commissioner Barraza, was that a no vote or an abstention on the minutes? If you are back with us.
You're on mute, Commissioner Barraza.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. Fortunately, I was double included here and I wasn't able to connect in. But what I had a request for a change on a specific area before we vote. Could I tell you what that is? I know that you already have a motion, but I was trying to get in, but I can get in.
You can request the change, and the maker of the motion and the second can approve your changes and incorporate them into the motion.
Okay. Basically, my requested change is on page 6, item 12, the last paragraph, when the motion that was made and seconded for the approval of it was actually not to approve the recommendation by staff of the budget. What I wanted to request is that if there could be a discussion prior to that motion about the subject that came up about the fact that the documentation that was being presented was not adequate for us to make a determination that we have to make as to whether 50% of the funding is being complying with the requirement that the highest needs neighborhoods be addressed first. We had that conversation. There's no reference about that in the minutes. And the reason why that's important is for future generations, whenever somebody reads why we did not support the recommended budget that was submitted by staff, was actually, there was a reason for it, and that reason is not stated anywhere.
And so we can make that change, although I'd ask if you can clarify that in like a precise sentence so we can get that added to the minutes. But that is, of course, subject to the motion maker and the second approving that change.
I think the statement would be that that there was a discussion prior to the making of that motion as to the fact that the recommended budget did not include information about compliance with the 50% rule that relates to the highest needs neighborhoods that under Measure P regulations we have to comply with. So that's one of the findings that we're supposed to be making in order for us to approve the budget. And we were not, at least I made a second of that motion and therefore was not able to make a motion in support because the documentation submitted by staff was not adequate. And I think that there has to be a mention made that, and it was also, the comment was also made by the chair and the vice chair when that discussion came out.
All right, I'm not sure that was any more concise or shorter, but if that is approved by the motion maker and the second, we will add what you have stated to the minutes.
Are you saying, so to get clarification, I'm sorry, Commissioner Parks, we're talking about the motion from last meeting or the motion to approve the minutes and Commissioner Parks' motion to approve the minutes?
It was in reference to the minutes and the comment on and the information on the action taken at the last meeting reflected on the minutes on page 6, the last paragraph of item 12. So I was able to, because of technical difficulties, I was trying to speak, but I wasn't able to. Therefore, I wasn't recognized until the motion got it.
So my question, go ahead.
I was going to say another option as well is that you could continue this item to the next meeting and further information can be filled in for your consideration.
But this happened at the last meeting.
Correct, but there's video of the meeting. So this is approval of the minutes. If you aren't comfortable with the minutes the way they are and you want additional information, then we can continue the item, the approval of the minutes, to allow staff to go back and watch the video and adequately put in the information you're requesting and bring it back at the next meeting.
And I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Barraza. I just wanted to let you know that the purpose of minutes are to record the actions that are taken and not necessarily the words that were said or the reason behind those actions, but we can add that if that is the commission's wish. And Christy was, the attorney's office was letting us know that we can push this item off to the next meeting for approval of these minutes, which is okay. That happens all the time. And that would allow you time to maybe email us the language you would like to add on, and that way it would be very clear what we are to add to the minutes.
Right. And I see in other places in the minutes where there is reference to the discussion that occurred in the meeting. So it's not unusual and that's the reason why we ask commissioners to approve minutes, is because we may not agree with something that was left out, and that's the purpose of the participation on the vote. It'd be fine with me if you'd like to act on this for the next meeting and review the tape, but I hope we don't have to be reviewing tapes every time we suggest a correction.
This is Commissioner Parks, maker of the original motion. I think the best bet is to continue the minutes to the next meeting so we can see the edit and we can improve them at that time. So I'll move that we continue the minutes to our next meeting in July.
And that I will second.
All right, so that is a motion by Commissioner Parks and Chair Dolan. They have updated their motion to continue the approval of the minutes to the next meeting. And with that, I will take a vote. Commissioner Parks?
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh, I think is still absent. Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller? Oh, absent, sorry. Commissioner Apuda?
I'm sorry, I had to step away. Could you tell me what the motion was?
This is to lay over the approval of the minutes to the next meeting.
That's what I thought. Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Vang?
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Chair Dolan?
Aye.
And Chair McCoy?
Yes.
And that passes. Minutes will be on the next agenda.
Thank you. Now we will move on to subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission?
Commissioner Parks, do you want to add anything? The only thing I'm just going to, I thought it would be better if you say something since you were at the meeting and I was not at the meeting.
Sure. So the subcommittee had a meeting last week with Aldi and another member of the park staff. And so our last discussion was reviewing a draft plan of the timeline for the cultural arts plan. And essentially the gist of that meeting was we need to stay on our deadlines as we are going throughout this year so that we can be prepared to present and recommend the cultural arts plan both to this commission and then hopefully to City Council by April, May 2023. So just a brief update.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Parks. Does the Parks Master Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission?
No update, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dolan. We will now move on to member reports and comments. As a reminder, this is a time for commission members to report anything they feel important for the public or commission to know, but it's not a time for a discussion. Commissioner Barraza, do you have any reports or comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. I saw the list of council motions that have been approved by the City Council, and there were a couple of items that I wanted to make an observation and perhaps in one of them schedule or request that there be more discussion on something. One is motion number 2 that talks about the use or the allocation of 12.8 million in Measure P funds to finance I guess it's like the conversion of basins and it's actually directing the city manager and city attorney to negotiate an agreement for that process. The subject that I like to discuss down the road, I kind of would like to know more about the cost benefit of investing in basins and the concern that, I don't really know how much time are basins available for use for recreational purposes, because the main purpose of basins, is all you know, is to collect stormwater. And therefore, I would think that there's probably some benefits and some disadvantages. And I would like to know, for that sizable investment of Measure P money, I would like to have more information on that. I know that the action has already been taken and the funds already approved, However, as a commissioner for Metro P, I think that's an area where we probably would like to know more about it. Let's see. I think that's it. That the other item is not important, but I think I just like to get more information, and I'll make a formal request that we discuss. You know, is it really a good thing to invest in those type of facilities? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. Vice Chair Dolan, do you have any reports or comments?
I do not. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Commissioner Cummings, do you have any reports or comments?
Sure. I'd like to look also back to, as Commissioner Barraza was talking about the list of 91 motions that were made by City Council for funding. And I did note that the recommendations, the majority of the recommendations that we made at the prior commission meeting to where we were charged with making recommendations to City Council, none of them were there except for the $300,000 for entrance fees to parks. So I question, at what point do our recommendations make it as a possibility for funding? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Does anyone on the park staff want to answer that question for Commissioner Cummings?
So the recommendations that you all made were presented as part of Parks Department's presentation to the City Council. They were part of that PowerPoint presentation, and they were also communicated via a train memo, an inter-city train memo to the council members. So then it is up to them in terms of making motions as they wish.
TJ Miller, City Manager. Am I on mute or?
No, you're good.
No,
we
okay.
can hear you.
Thank you. I see the mute button. I just wanted to elaborate a little more on that, Commissioner Cummings. So the recommendations that the commission provided in February, before the budget was being built and submitted by Parks, that information and those motions were embedded into the Parks proposed budget. And then the information that the recommendations you made in the last meeting, I think it was on June 6th, those were then presented to council in addition to the already proposed budget. Those were additional. So your February recommendations and any recommendations that are made from the point that the budget is already in progress. So for example, the motions that you made, if they do not make it as motions by council, the ones that you just made, those can be put into FY24 whenever Parks is building the FY24 budget. So they'll stay on the record as well as other motions that you make throughout that period of time. But once Parks submits their budget, and then council takes it from there once the mayor presents the proposed budget. So I hope that makes sense. And I think as this is, remember, this is really the first full budget cycle that this committee has had. And so as the timing, it starts to get a better rhythm, you'll recognize that there are things that may not get motion if they're brought later to the table, but all of the information that you brought before the budget was submitted was considered.
Okay, it is my understanding that the role that we have as a commission is to make those recommendations on behalf of the public so that they are considered for funding now.
Correct, and that is what the February recommendations before that budget, while that budget was being presented and prepared by Parks Department, that was, your recommendations were brought forth into that preparation, and those were identified to council in terms of these were recommendations that were made on behalf of the Parks Commission and proposed in this budget. And then after the proposed budget was presented, any recommendations that you had, we also delivered those to council.
But you're saying those won't be considered until the 24 budget? Is that what you said, or did I miss anything?
Unless a council member makes the recommendation to bring those forward. However, and Christy, you'll have to jump in on this piece. I believe that activity was concluded in terms of new budget motions on last Thursday, and this Thursday they'll be voting on the motion. So, or approving. They voted on the motions last Thursday and they're approving this Thursday. Now, that does not mean that there are not opportunities. For example, at mid-year, sometimes projects get brought forth. They get brought forth at different times. But for this adopted budget, the items that were made in the budget motions, the council motions, depending on what gets approved, those motions were made, seconded, and voted on. The next step is the approval of the budget package, which is on Thursday, and everything that's contained at that point in time will make it into the FY23 budget.
Were there any questions from council members about the commission and their recommendations after the presentation?
I'll have to rely on Aaron's memory to help me with that as well. I do not recall if there was a specific, but it was part of the presentation. So it wasn't just a memo that was delivered. There was a memo in addition to a presentation.
So Commissioner Cummings, Aaron Aguirre, Parks Department Director. I do not recall a specific question. I know they did talk about, when I say they, council, some of the park ranger discussions that I know the commission had. And as well as some of the other recommendations. I believe the fee waiver program was touched upon. Hopefully that answered your question.
So can I just ask that, and I know that we are all working through this process, commissioners and city staff together, but the idea that we're only learning about this now, that everything we did before wasn't even going to be considered at that, is a little bit difficult, right? I mean, it's only now that we're being told that all the things that we voted on and recommendations that we made weren't even to be considered because the budget was already in progress. If I understand it, and if I don't, it's fine. But I just think clarity beforehand is much better than explanation afterwards, because it comes across feeling like we're only learning about these things after the fact. And that's a little frustrating, honestly.
Well, and what I'll recommend, so I have not been, there was a point in time where I wasn't the parks director and I was just the personnel director, so I haven't been in all the meetings, but I know this time last year, there were a lot of educational materials, and we had even the budget director go through the timeline of how that's all broken down. So I think that it probably will be in our best interest to repeat that and continue to, because those timelines and those February recommendations that you made, those were very important, and they were embedded in the park's submitted budget.
And if I could interrupt real quick, because we're a Brown Act commission, we can't go too far down the rabbit hole with this conversation because it was not an agendized item. Although it is supposed to be on the next agenda, my understanding is that Commissioner Singh asked for a lot of this information to be presented on the July 11th meeting.
Correct. Commissioner Barraza, I see your hand
up. Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I had the other item that I just caught here. The second item that happened during the budget hearings is recommendations to buy land for parks. And you know, we're supposed to be working on a master plan. We're supposed to be identifying the overall needs for more land and the future needs for space. And And I hope somehow the commission gets involved in that process, because otherwise we're working in isolation. There's no interaction between what we do and what the council does. And so I just wanted to make an observation that that's another area where we see a lot of actions that really rightfully belong to the commission as the start, and then at the end, the council decides whatever the council wants to do. But I wanted to point that out also, that a lot of land being bought, and even though we have a lot of land already in Southeast Fresno, for example. Anyway, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, we're going to continue on with the agenda. Commissioner Parks, do you have any reports or comments for this commission?
Just a couple of comments. I'll start with the positive cheerleading comments. First, I just wanted to take a moment to express my appreciation to Parks Director Aguirre and Assistant Director Aldi Ramirez. Leading up to our last meeting, I had a lot of questions about various line items in the budget, and they were both extremely available and answered all of those questions for me. And I did not do a good job of expressing that during our last meeting, so I wanted to take a moment to do that now. Second item, I understand from the Public Works Department that the restroom at Jensen River Ranch and the restroom on the Eaton Trail are now going to be open, accessible, locked at appropriate times, and cleaned on a regular basis. And I'm very excited about that for the benefit of the community, and I assume Measure P funds are helping with that. And then I also just want to take a moment to affirm some of the comments that we just heard. It's a little frustrating to feel like you don't know what's going on, and I watched the budget hearing, and it was a brief presentation about what our commission's recommendations were. And we did make a specific recommendation back in the February timeframe specific to cricket. Commissioner Singh made that recommendation. And to the best of my knowledge, and I believe I asked about this during the last meeting, that did not make it in as part of the budget. So it feels like we really don't have much opportunity to make recommendations on behalf of the public, and that is really disappointing. Thank you.
Echo your comments here, Commissioner Parks. Thank you for that. Is Commissioner Singh in the chambers with you? I want to go to him. I don't want to forget him if he's there.
He is not in the chamber as of yet.
Thank you. Commissioner Vang, are there any reports or comments you'd like to for this commission to know, or the public?
Yeah, so I just wanted to address the cooling centers. I know it's been open now because of the heat going up. It's raised to going to be over 105. I believe there's 4 centers. I think it's Frankfall, Neighborhood Park, Musqueda, Pinedale, and Pissy Well. And it's going to be open from 12 to 7. But I was just having, I don't know if I could provide a suggestion, if we're able to extend the hour to 9 to 8, because I know it's really hot, especially, I mean, you know, when you walk out there at 9 o'clock, it's already hot. And for our families who don't have appropriate air conditioner, are we allowed to make recommendation for that? And then I just wanted to know, when the cooling center are open, do we provide food for our families? And do we provide them water? If someone could respond to that. And then we only have 4 centers open. Are we going to open more centers? Because Fresno is so big, and just 4 centers, I feel like it's just so little. So I don't know if someone could respond to that. And then the third question is, do we have PSA out there in Spanish and Hmong and Punjabi to inform families, especially for those who doesn't have social media, about these cooling centers available to our family to actually utilize them from those times that are specific to out there in the social media? And that's all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Apuda, do you have any member reports or comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of comments. I appreciate my fellow commissioners expressing their concerns about the budget process. And at the same time, I too want to acknowledge the work that city staff is doing to get a budget. I look forward to, as TJ said, this is our first full year, and yet and still many of the commissioners expressed not being satisfied with the process in our vote, right? And I want to make it clear that was, for me, a difficult vote because I want to honor the work that the city staff had done, but didn't feel like I was representing the citizens well to vote for that budget. So I look forward to us continuing to work together on this process. The other comment I want to make, and I hope I'm in line to do this at this meeting, and that is to commend the city and the mayor for honoring the theme of One Fresno by raising the pride flag. I want to express my disappointment in other council member, a particular council member, and very painful remarks that were made directed at our LGBTQ plus community. And I want to also acknowledge our fellow Commissioner Dolan and the Fresno Chaffee Zoo for their work to include all Fresno. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Apuda. No member reports or comments for me. I just want to say that I echo and I stand with all of the comments that were made by my fellow commissioners. And we're going to move on to city administration and park staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration have any reports or comments for this commission?
I do, Commissioner McQuay. Aaron Aguirre, Parks Director. Just wanted to update you all on our cooling centers. I know Commissioner Bang brought that up, but that was on my list of updates. She's correct. We do have the 4 cooling centers: Pinedale, Frank H. Bald, Ted C. Wills, and Musqueda. Those are open when we reach or exceed 105 degrees. So those were activated Saturday, Sunday, and again today. In addition to those 4 cooling centers, our other 14 community centers are open Monday through Friday, 10 to 7. While they aren't designated cooling centers per se, they are open for the community to access. And those sites can be anything from Inspiration Park to Pink White and so forth. With the cooling centers, the 4 centers, those designated for have free fax rides to community members who are in need of transportation. So want to make sure that is documented. Fax just posted something today outlining what community members need to do, those who are in need of transportation to our cooling centers. And with that, just today, we shot a PSA talking about our cooling center. So Commissioner Bang, you should see something here shortly that will be broadcasted out to the community. So I look forward to that. Also want to highlight our splash pads are all up and running, as well as our polls lessons. Sessions 1 and 2 were a big hit, and those immediately filled up. Rec Swim is open and free to all residents. So there are no longer any barriers thanks to the master fee schedule item that was approved a few weeks back. So many ways for our residents to stay cool in our parks and our community centers. So just wanted to put that out for all and available to answer any questions.
Aaron, just a quick clarifying question.
Sure.
Was the information about the cooling centers, was that sent out in more than English? Sorry, I guess multiple languages.
So Commissioner Dolan, that was just shot today. So city staff is working on that video, and we'll work on some translation services. So it has not yet hit the airwaves yet, but look forward to having that out probably within the next week.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Director Aguirre. Is there food and water provided for our residents who utilize the cooling center?
So cooling centers do not provide food, but oftentimes a lot of our sites, if it is Monday through Friday, we do have snacks that are after school programs. So there are snacks available, but the cooling centers per se, if it were a Saturday or Sunday, would not have those snacks available. Water is available. We have various hydration stations as well as bottled water. So
are we allowed to utilize our Measure P funds to buy food for our families who needs food? Because can you imagine someone so hot, they're coming to your facility and then they have to go back again to get food? Like maybe providing them a sandwich with a juice. Are we allowed to make recommendation for the city council to approve some funds for that?
let me look into that, Commissioner Bank. I don't know what limitations the ordinance places on food, but I can definitely look into that and report back.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Does anyone from the park staff have any reports or comments for the commission? I know we heard from the director. All right, we will now move on to unscheduled communication. Would any member of the public like to speak on any issue within the jurisdiction of this commission? As a reminder, if you have a comment regarding any workshops on the agenda, this is the time to make a comment, as public comment is not taken at the time of the workshops. You will have up to 3 minutes.
Chair McCoy, we do have public comment. We have Lisa Flores.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you guys. I really do appreciate it. My first question is, as I'm listening to your previous discussions, I have a couple issues. No one has said of the 91 recommendations that this commission has made, how many of them were actually accepted, and why it kind of seems like you guys are getting the short end of the stick here as far as representing the community and actually invoking what the community wants to see with their Measure P funds. That's the first issue. So how many of the 91 recommendations have been accepted and are moving forward in the budget for this year and then for next year that are waiting in line? The second question is regarding access to community centers and cooling centers. Currently, the HART team is wrestling up people out of shaded spots, even in this hideous 100 and I don't know, what is it, 7 today? Weather, trying to force people onto sidewalks, which are basically nothing but emitting terrible amounts of heat. And even the National Weather System folks have suggested that governments and businesses invoke the OSHA standards, which includes lots of breaks, keeping people cool, and part of the thing when you're dealing with coming out of this terrible heat is heat exhaustion and the possibility of having to have medical intervention. And one of the things you always want to have is cold water. You want to be able to have like wet towels. Also for their animals, blocks of ice works really well to help cool them down because they like to lick the ice cubes, not the ice cubes, I do ice blocks. But also to provide people with some nutrition sustenance, also keeps individuals with adequate blood sugar levels versus crashing, especially in this sort of weather. So I would hope that the Parks Department finds the money and the resources and the talent to provide a safety protocol for these cooling centers, because our community not only deserves it, but there's also OSHA standards that back it. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker we have is Brenda.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brenda Kispe. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I want to start off with saying that I definitely agree with that. I, like, as a community member, as somebody that works with the youth, as a mother, like I am frustrated that there were so many people from the community that came to a prior meeting of this committee, and and y'all heard and y'all made motions and none of that carried over. Like, I don't understand the whole process, you know, when city council votes or not, but that's, you know, just very frustrating, especially because the meeting, this meeting is usually evenings, and I can usually make them, as opposed to the city council, which is during work hours. I mean, who's gonna be able to do that? So there's that. I'm also here to support to establish outreach committee. I love that because that is including our community members' voices. It's letting them have that leadership experience, right? And knowing a little bit more how how everything works. I'm really grateful for CNC because I learned so much that I didn't know about my city, the own process, and trying to figure out how to be involved and advocate for the youth, right, for my community. I also want to mention that there's amazing things that I'm hearing, you know, from other places, such as centers doing like a arts and crafts take and go, right? It's just little crafts put together, parents, anybody from the community can come pick up for their children. So I think that'd be awesome if something like that can be implemented. Another one is that there is a center that's doing free weekly sessions. One week is like cooking, another week it's like superheroes theme, another week is nature. And so I haven't heard of anything Fresno doing that. So I mean, something like that, I mean, that would be amazing, right? And I also want to mention, I heard during the city council meetings that like 2 million was set aside to something I never heard of, but I'm totally open-minded to learn more about it. But pickleball, I've never heard, ever since I was 18 years old working with students, none of my students, myself, never heard of pickleball. I mean, you know, we're teaching all of these skills in our public schools, and the hope, you know, for our students to be able to play in parks, but I guess I'll start promoting pickleball, but I'm really hoping that something can be done.
Brenda, I apologize for interrupting, Brenda, but your 3 minutes is up.
Oh, thank you.
Next, we have Brandy.
Hi, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to put my timer on so I don't go over. First of all, I want to thank you, Commissioner Laputa, for your words, for acknowledging what is the things that need to be spoken of and for LGBT community, and acknowledging the raising of the pride flag. And thank you for mentioning about the need to represent the community, and everyone, all the council commissioners' comments about representation. A lot of you, us share your concerns regarding your recommendations. First of all, since I didn't have a chance to, thank you so much for the recommendations you put forth. And we do have concerns. We did, you know, we thought that the budget hearing that you held would carry the same weight and not less weight than public hearings held earlier this year. And that was not communicated to the community as well. And hope that the council recognizes and hears that that you put a lot of work in, the community put a lot of work in, and you put a lot of work into coming up with those recommendations. Thank you so much for speaking for park rangers being in the parks program, and we will continue to advocate for that. Thank you, Commissioner Vang, regarding the cooling centers. I agree, it does need to be open earlier and open later because it continues to be hot, and traveling to and from is a concern. Soria mentioned about changing the time as well, and the temperatures to 100 degrees rather than 105. And I don't know what place this commission has on that, but would like to see that pursued. I know that they were planning on having an emergency response team, but would like to get that before the summer, because not only is it really dangerously hot and when it's 100, it's a little confusing for people to try to determine when it's 105 or not when it's a weekend. I'm glad that the community that the community centers are open. I've been trying to communicate and get that information out. But would also, and this is, I'll actually hold this for the Measure P for another expense regarding, so I'll continue my conversation. But do you want to echo the need for food, because people ask me if there's food there, and that would definitely be a huge help if they're there for a while. And also want to ask that work be done on getting more communications, mailers, signages on buses and bus stops in places where people, big banners right on the facing the thing, and getting communication out so that especially for the unhoused, because they do not necessarily access the same communications as other people do and have less access to videos and whatnot. And also to communicate that there is also splash pads and pools available, especially with the unhoused, so they know that they have the resources. We're very happy to learn that there's things like this, but there really needs to be an effort to go beyond that. So, that is my 3 minutes. Thank you guys so much for everything that you've said in your comments, and I'll continue on the Measure P item.
Thank you. Next, we have Des Martinez.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I want to say thank you to Commissioner Vang for bringing up the cooling centers, the food, and just having them open longer. That would definitely help. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen an infrared thermometer asphalt reader, but we had some tests run, and in the sun on the asphalt, it runs 142 degrees. In an RV today, it was 108.5 with shaded windows. Then we have the tents. They were reading about 123 degrees. Black asphalt on the road was reading 107. Inside somebody's vehicle was 111. Another road of asphalt that was cracked up that we read was, again, 147. There was a vehicle that somebody was residing in, and it reached up to 170.4. The temperature says 103, but different parts of Fresno that are unshaded or even in the shade are still impossible to keep cool. No matter how much water we give out, we've given out probably over 1,000 bottles of water a week through Project H2O, and that's still not enough. We need shade. We need more cooling centers. We need every single community center open to be available as a cooling center. We need misters that are outside. We need the animals that the unhoused have, and that other individuals that have housing with no AC, they have animals too. We need every single community center open. I know the city's like, but it's going to cost money. As Merelda said last week, we got enough money, so they can find it somewhere. The food, sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and tangerines, and hydration. You need some type of Gatorade to send off with them. Maybe think about pads and tampons and clean underwear for the women. There's got to be something a little bit more that we can do regarding this heat. It's a heat wave. I challenge City Hall to shut off the AC first thing in the morning and not use it all day. I challenge them to do that, and maybe they would understand how hot it really is to live in the heat. Again, thank you for bringing up the cooling centers. This is my first time being here, so I'm not going to go too hard. All right, thanks. That's it.
Thanks, Des. Next, we have Pedro Navarro Cruz.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to say thank you to all the commissioners that took the time to hear our CNC Fresno Parks Advocates United leaders and their ideas through the course of this budget cycle. For the commissioners that we have not had the chance to meet with, we look forward to setting up a meeting sometime in the future. The meetings really confirmed to us just that the right people were selected for this, and I really feel the frustration as far as thinking so hard as far as the ideas and putting something into the budget, but then not feel that reciprocated in City Hall. So I feel you with that. But as far as the outreach and moving forward, we're very excited, and we hope to play a part in continuing to share ideas in whatever way possible. Something that does come to mind immediately as far as creating an outreach committee and just getting the ball moving on outreach ideas is one, just going back to our budget ask, the participatory budgeting and the resident sample survey, that idea didn't get too much motion on there, but I think there will always be a time and space for that. And also, it's great to see that the park's social media is a lot active than it ever was. The only thing that I would add to it is that it's already pretty busy with English content, and I think it would be suitable to have a separate social media accounts in different languages where parks can focus on different communities, right? Just getting the same information out there, but tailor it to more impact communities, the different communities. I noticed through the last meeting that there wasn't any translation. So I just feel that there has to be an active effort to hire more folks, to have translation, and just make these meetings more inviting to everybody in this very diverse and beautiful city. But that's all I wanted to share. Thank you all again for your hard work, and we look forward to being involved in the future.
Thank you. Chair McCoy, I believe that is all public comment that we have for today.
Thank you, City Clerk. We will now move on to hearings. ID number 22-1030, hearing to establish the Outreach Committee, a subcommittee of the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission, and define committee roles, responsibilities, and membership. And this was sponsored by Commissioner Parks. Commissioner Parks, would you like to introduce this item to the commission and the public?
Sure. Thank you, Chair McCoy. So I made some notes for myself here today. So I initially brought the idea for an outreach subcommittee up during our June 6th hearing, which was to receive public input on allocations related to Measure P and the annual Parks Department budget. And during that hearing, City Attorney Costa mentioned that it's an opportunity for public comment related to the Parks Master Plan. And so that's where my head was kind of at initially. Is my question was, how can this commission contribute to engaging more residents in the Parks Master Plan update? But since the June 6th meeting, so I've had some more time to think about this, I've given some more thought to what an outreach subcommittee could potentially do and could potentially help city staff and the administration with. A couple of points that come to mind is we've heard from the public essentially at every meeting that word is not getting out about how to participate in these commission meetings. The Measure P website is pretty difficult to navigate. I went back and reviewed it again today, and I think that's an area that could potentially use some improvement. I've personally heard from community members that it's difficult to understand how to join the commission meetings if you're going to do so virtually and you want to participate and make comments. And some questions that those things bring to mind is just how can we improve outreach to community members, specifically community members who aren't active on social media. So we have a lot of reliance on websites and social media, but that definitely is leaving out members of our community. How can we reach more children to hear their voices? And how can we do a better job of sharing news about Measure P funded projects and progress with photos to kind of build some positive momentum and feelings about Measure P? I've also been thinking about branding for Measure P. The Measure P committee, so this is what I call the coalition that really got Measure P on the ballot, has beautiful graphics and was pretty engaged in sharing information about our meetings and things that were happening. The city has its own branding, so is using different graphics to outreach. And each of us as commission members might be outreaching through our own networks with varying graphics. I know through the River Parkway Trust, we kind of have our own look for how we share information about the commission. So I think this is another element that the committee could be working on to kind of make it a little bit more uniform so it's kind of a better voice going out into the community. I also spent a little time today reviewing the city's legal handbook for boards and commissions. And my takeaway, and I look forward to input from the city attorney, but my takeaway is if this new committee is going to function like our current Parks Master Plan and Cultural Arts Plan subcommittees, It may need to be an ad hoc committee that would have a specific kind of task and time frame to accomplish it. And so maybe something that could be is a community outreach plan and calendar for the next year, the next fiscal year. And I'll just close by saying I tried to bring this forward on the agenda in such a way that we could have a very thorough and robust discussion with community input. I definitely don't want us to create something that isn't useful. And my commitment is to continue improving outreach about Measure P so that our community members feel knowledgeable about how Measure P is being implemented and that they actually have a voice in that implementation. So I brought this up kind of off the cuff during our last meeting. I've given it some more thought, and I look forward to hearing from my fellow commissioners to see if this is something that we would like to form and recommend.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Before I go to my fellow commissioners for a discussion, I'd like to go out to the public. Would any member of the public like to make a comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes.
Yes, Chair McCoy, we have Brandy Villas.
Yeah, I hope to hear from a lot of other people from our community. I want to thank you so much for this. I know that we've brought it up a lot, and I applaud your efforts, Sarah, and I know that this is a priority for all the Parks Commissioners, as far as I know them, but I haven't seen anything otherwise, regarding to reach out to the community. One of my focuses as a volunteer work, it has been to try to connect the dots between the community and to know more about stuff. And I've seen a lot of weak areas in all departments. And so I think I think that having a commission to focus on this would be great. And I would like to offer like whatever assistance I can as far as sharing anything I've kind of learned from the community. It's important. One of our greatest assets is decision making is our community. So I do want to uplift some of the suggestions already brought forth to you. CNC's survey and the participatory budget, their survey to be able to reach out and get a better grasp of that. And I know that there was interest in that a couple of months ago when that was brought up, and I would love to see that revised. Another valuable asset is our community organizations, including some of our commissioners are on some of these amazing organizations that work closely, and I feel like they would have a lot to say and be able to be able to lend into how do you reach out to it. And I've learned from, unfortunately, the concerns with the community relations department with the city potentially being defunded, how much that the people who work there could be an asset in there. One of the things I've seen that was really helpful, and again, I can go more detailed, I saw with like the police commission police reform commission is they needed to reach out to a group that needed a voice, which was the in-house. And so they paid those who work directly with the in-house to be able to get help to take out paper surveys. So they overcame barriers that kept the in-house from being able to be part of that. And I definitely think that investment in the organizations that would assist in this, I think that there should be community grassroots involved in helping you, but also to be invested in, as that's a lot of work. And so, and other agencies like the Disability Commission to be able to consider accessibility issues, like to see more things with like video tutorials and postcards that go out. I think that people have mentioned about the idea that postcards are great for people who aren't on social media. There are so many different ways to be able to do that, and would love to be able to share some of the things I've learned, but also feel like there are people who, these groups that have been working with community members could probably give a lot of feedback on the best ways to reach out, and would love to see that partnership. Thank you so much.
Next, we have Lisa Flores.
Hi, Kimberly, excuse me. I would love to volunteer. As you know, I'm a retired state planner, both environmental and transportation. And one of the things that I did for a very long time, and one of my assignments was public outreach for environmental documents dealing with multi-million-dollar construction projects. So if there's a community that needed to be found, I found them. So I have experience doing that, and I also know that you're going to need somebody with some experience as far as production, getting information, and actually pulling together a plan for you. So if you need my help, just ask. Whether I'm appointed to something or not, it really doesn't matter. Just let me know. But yeah, because there's a lot of, because nothing against city staff, but a lot of them just don't have the experience and the forte. Because I think in a lot of the things that you're doing, everything is deadline driven. And I don't see a lot of mile markers and plans developed that are actually, that outreach and are adequate to the community. So if you need my help, let me know. I'm thinking as far as the community stuff, you have to go meet people out in the parks. If you're doing something with the dog park community, hanging signs, believe it or not, is the simplest way to get a hold of us. Knowing that, there are certain water basins that dog people use more so than any other place in Fresno. So, there's great rooms for improvement, and I hope you guys get the right people. And like I say, if you need my help, just give me a call, because I am the queen of the dog park at Roding. So this serves my own personal interests as well. Oh, and the last thing I wanted to let you know that when you were talking about this, I was thinking of something snazzy and catchy, and I'm thinking you should call it P3, participating in the parks programs. Something along that line, as something catchy, because you're going to have to market it. It has to be catchy, simple. And P3 will make kids think like computer games, like a P2, a Wii 3, or whatever they play. So anyway, but I thank you for your time.
Chair McCoy, that's all the public comment.
Thank you, City Clerk. And now I will bring the discussion back to the commission. Do I have any commissioners who have any questions or comments regarding this item? Well, Commissioner Parks, I would like to commend you and thank you for bringing this item up. I am in agreement with you. I feel that we do need to have some type of subcommittee, community engagement, outreach subcommittee to be able to really capture our residents' voices when it comes to the implementation of Measure P. And I will support you. And I just wanted to go on record to saying that. And just go by one more time to my commissioners. Do they have any questions or comments regarding this item? If not, yes, Commissioner Barraza.
I think the other part that I would be very interested in knowing is when the master plan starts, the implementation, the development of that starts going. I understand that there is in process the selection of organizations that will be participating in that outreach effort. And I just, I'm looking for how we augment, not necessarily duplicate or avoid having to do the same twice. I think probably if we're talking about, as we speak about outreach, maybe the way we reach out to the public, and I'm thinking about the various cultures in our community, how we do it, improving that area. There's always going to be room for that, and I think I would welcome the opportunity to do that. Even things relating to how the surveys were being completed, and concerns that I've heard from different people that we were not doing as good of a job as we should in reaching out to to the entire community. Maybe there are places to improve, but I hope that we don't forget that there is a process that's being developed when we start the master plan, that there's supposed to be a lot of community outreach. And also the other component deals with the arts and culture. That's also supposed to have a community outreach process. So we have a lot of community outreach, and maybe having this committee to oversee all that process might be useful. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. I appreciate your comments. Do any of my other commissioners have any comments regarding this item? If not, I'm gonna move for a motion. Do I have a motion?
Could I actually ask a clarifying question of the city attorney? So I mentioned in my kind of cursory review of the handbook, it seems like it might need to be an ad hoc committee so that we don't have Brown Act issues. Is that accurate to say? And if so, that means there needs to be like a specific task to accomplish, correct?
Correct. So you would want to define what the ultimate kind of goal or endpoint is for this committee, and the boundaries of the committee, what they can, essentially what their role is.
Thank you. And that's what I was kind of hoping there would be a little more discussion today. Like, this was just an idea I had, coming from the last meeting, but I think my fellow commissioners' input is really important. So I guess I'm wondering, love to kind of know what everyone else is thinking. Are we feeling like this is duplicating efforts, or could we create something that would be useful? And then a follow-up question to that is, maybe the initial motion is to establish it and then kind of work on exactly what the committee will do. I'm not sure exactly how to move it forward in a useful way.
Commissioner Vang has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Vang?
Commissioner Parks, just to be specific, is the ad hoc committee our commissioners in the Parks and Culture, or is it ad hoc with community members outside of our commission?
That's another question I had is what is possible? Can we have, because I think, we've heard it I've heard it this evening with our wonderful community members who regularly participate in our meetings in city council, who have really good input and ideas about how to reach community. Is it possible that we could invite, if it were a subcommittee with 3 or less commission members, so we don't have the Brown Act issue, can we invite other community members to be part of it? Is there capacity within the city staff? I'm not totally clear on what the regulations are, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, so I would have to look into because again, we have to keep within the constraints of the ordinance, which means that when we're talking about a subcommittee, it's really furthering the goal of the commission. So this commission is designed for, taking in public input. And so I know that we discussed this previously, that, there's nothing that would allow this committee to make recommendations to city council related to how they should do public outreach, or to the city administration or the city staff. So we just we're gonna walk a fine line on what this committee can and cannot do. And I don't know if having a committee officially with members of the public part of the committee is within the role of this commission. That being said, you can reach out as a committee member to, the public, to try to get their input into what they feel needs to change or can expand.
Thank you for that clarification. And I meant to mention earlier, I come from the nonprofit sector where committees do a lot of the work. And so that's kind of what I'm used to and where my mindset is. So I'm just trying to navigate this space as being different from the nonprofit sector space. And again, I'm curious about what my fellow commissioners might be thinking about. And maybe we need to continue this and give it more thought, but
I would motion it to like have more conversation, because I think for me it's important to know what's the roles and responsibility of the ad hoc. Because the commissioners, I mean, just today, right, we share some light of frustration what we're going through as commissioner already, and to add another ad hoc, I think it just need to be clarified. I think it's a great opportunity, Commissioner Parks. I think it's an opportunity for us to look into. I do think so too, but I think just need to be clarified. And then, but I'm willing to take a motion, either way, whatever my colleague says.
And Commissioner Vang, I'm not sure exactly what your motion was. I think that the city clerk will probably need clarification as well.
Oh, just to move this for another conversation.
Oh, so to continue it to the next meeting?
If that's the route Commissioner Parks wants to go, I'll support her.
Okay.
I think we need clarification on roles and responsibility as an ad hoc, right? I don't know if that's, I mean, I'm open. Like if Christy, if you feel like, we're ready, we can actually create an ad hoc, I'm open for that. I'm just not sure if that's not, I don't hear that. So that's why I'm saying maybe we should have another conversation about it. That's all.
So, and just real quick, just so you know, my opinion on whether you're ready or not is irrelevant in this situation. And so, but you can, if you don't feel comfortable, or if you feel like you need more information on how to define this, you can motion to continue it to the next meeting for further discussion.
Yeah, I was just talking about, definement. I wasn't talking about, yes. I mean, I want to hear from my other colleagues too, because I want to, again, I do support Commissioner Park. I think she's bringing a good awareness to all of us as commissioner. So I'm just going to wait to hear from my other colleagues too. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vang. Dr. Apuda, you have your hand up. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair McCoy, and thank you, Commissioner Parks, for your thinking behind this. And I'm wondering if perhaps there's a step before forming the official ad hoc committee on outreach, but maybe to for a small group of us, so it may again be a very short-term committee to make some recommendations about the outreach committee, right? So that we can gather the kind of information that we're talking about from city staff and come up with the purpose and then bring that to the commission. Say, okay, we've looked into it, we've gotten very clear on what the measure will allow us to do in this regard, and come up with a written proposal for what an outreach committee could do. So I'd love to hear thoughts on that, and I would be happy to make a recommendation around that and to serve on that committee. I mean, to make a motion, that's what I wanted to say, and to serve on that committee.
Thank you. It sounds like to me that we're in support, but we really want to know more details and really want to work out the roles and responsibilities of it. So if it's okay with Commissioner Parks, I will motion to continue this item until the next time we meet. So we'll be able, as a commission, to come up with ideas and questions and what we feel that the role of the community engagement subcommittee should be.
I'll second that motion. I think that's a good plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. City Clerk, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Certainly, and this is a motion
Is it possible for some discussion before we do a vote? A discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Yeah. I would once again ask us to consider what I just suggested, to continue it to the next meeting without some work in between there. I'm wondering about a small group being able to come to the commission at the next meeting with a proposed details about this committee, rather than just have a conversation again the next time. I feel like we could move it along a little quicker, but.
And Chair McCoy, when I mentioned this during our last meeting, I think my original kind of thought was, could we revive the highest needs neighborhood subcommittee to focus on this? Since we have 3 members on cultural arts and 3 members on the parks master plan, and I wonder if that is a way we could move it forward, is by reviving that committee to address this, if those commissioners are willing, and then we can have another discussion with more of a potential plan in place at a future meeting.
Well, I'm just gonna interject real quick. You do need to have an established committee with roles defined before staffing that committee.
So in other words, we need to have definement of what this subcommittee will be doing before we appoint people to the subcommittee, correct?
Correct.
So again, I believe motion to have this discussion for the next meeting would be better for the commission, because then we'll be able to sit back and think about the roles and what we feel, each one feels that the subcommittee should be doing as a community outreach subcommittee, and what our roles will be. I know that myself, Dr. Apuda, and Commissioner Singh, we were on the highest needs subcommittee. So if it was reviving that committee, it would be us 3. But I want to make sure that any other commissioners would like to participate, to where maybe we can alternate out or whatever. Just giving everyone a chance. But I think that we should continue this item to the next meeting, and my motion still stands. Dr. Apuda, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you might be willing to modify your motion with some specific actions we should be taking between now and the next meeting, so this can move forward.
Yes, I feel that I can do that. I feel that we should come prepared with what we feel this subcommittee will be doing, what our roles will be, and what will be our plan to better do community engagement outreach when it comes to having our meetings, and when it comes to surveying and whatever else this commission needs public input on. So yes, I'll be willing to motion to add on to my motion with specifics.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
This is the City Clerk, Chair McCoy. Just double checking. So you are amending your motion with specific direction for the commissioners to come prepared with the roles and plans, come prepared with the roles of the committee members and plans on how to improve community engagement. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is that okay with the second?
Yes.
Thank you.
And this might not be the right time to add this, so I apologize, but the other thing that would be helpful for me is, and Commissioner Barraza, I really appreciate your comments about the fact that there's outreach related to the Parks Master Plan update and also the Cultural Arts Plan. I understand what the Cultural Arts Plan work looks like. I'm not clear on what the parks master plan work looks like and what's planned and what's going to be happening and where WRT is. So maybe city staff could do a workshop on that to help us figure out how another committee could enhance those things.
So Commissioner Parks, would you like for the motion on the floor to be amended to include that language as well?
Real quick, if you're asking for an update on the master parks plan, that doesn't necessarily need to be done with this motion. That can just be requested as an agenda item.
Perfect. So we'll leave your motion as amended, Chair McCoy, and I second.
Thank you. City Clerk, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh, absent. Commissioner Cummings.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller, absent. Commissioner Apuda.
Yes.
Commissioner Vang.
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan.
Yes.
And Chair McCoy.
Yes.
That passes.
We will now move on to the next item, ID number 22-934, hearing to receive public input on allocations related to Measure P and the annual Parks Department budget and capital improvement plans. Would any member of the public like to make a comment regarding this item?
Yes, Chair.
You will have up to 3 minutes.
Yes, Chair McCoy. We have Brenda.
I'm so sorry. I meant to do it for the last item. I'll go ahead and retreat this one.
Thank you. Brandy.
Oh my, talking a lot today, but I have I wanted to continue to speak. I was actually planning on speaking on the cooling centers for this item, and again, thank you so much for bringing it up in the conversation. And I want to make some recommendations for expenditures for that, things I know would cause expenditures. And I want to add that I saw the video, and videos are helpful, and it's nice to see what the inside looks like. So kudos to the person working on that. Would love to see that in different languages. Because one of the things that I've learned, a lot of us volunteers helped the 6 to 7 weeks on and off that the warming center was open in the winter. And it was a lot of hard work. It was like a lot of hard work for the volunteers as well as the people working. And one of the things that was key is consistency is the strongest tool for participation. So I'm grateful that the community centers are open. I know that the difference between the two is that there is not accommodation for pets or transportation. So I want to again ask to see who would be the ones that potentially could change if there could be discussion, and if it would be under this commission to change the temperature in which cooling centers are activated to 100. And there are places like Modesto, where if it's over 100 not Modesto, Madera, when it's over 100 for more than 2 days, or 2 days or more, they go to 100 instead of 105. But also, investment in kennels and accommodations for pets, because it's so much easier to tell people you can go to all these places. It's just that when it's a cooling center, it will be open even on the weekends, than to say, well, I mean, I tried to explain it when I was going out giving waters the past week, and it's a little confusing when you can do this and when you can do that. And I don't want those with pets to be left out of this. I want to be able to say everyone can. And I know that this is, that the parks are making a lot of accommodations, things are changing, and that is great. And this would make it so much more accessible, because once we tell someone and they just know they can go there, it's so much easier than them trying to figure out when they can go, especially if they're unhoused and they have less access. And there was times where it said all of our things said 105, but the National Weather Service said 104, so it wasn't open. So even though we were expecting it to be open, it wasn't. And that's not the fault of the park, but it would show making accommodation for people to do there. The food would be great. Seeing if there's can be free rides to community centers no matter what, so that's more accessibly great. And I really quick, I want to throw in the idea of investing in watering stations like they have at Fresno State, where you can fill up your water bottle, and even having water bottles. I know that Dinuba did that last year outside their library so that people can fill up their water, and that would be a huge service even to those who can't be in the cooling centers and have to work or do everything to be able to have more access to water and more hydration. Thank you so much for your time.
Chair McCoy, that's all the public comment.
Thank you, City Clerk. Does any member of the commission have any questions or comments regarding this item? Commissioner Parks, you're in the chambers. I can't see you. Do you have any questions or comments regarding this item?
No.
Thank you. We will now adjourn the meeting at 6:59. It was good seeing you guys. You got a lot of time back to go be with your family. Try to stay cool and see you guys next week. Oh, July 11th. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.